Is this the Rookie CEO podcast?
Yeah, I think we're in the right place.
Oh, Hev, it's recording. This is Fuzz.
And I'm Hev, and you're listening to the Rookie CEO podcast.
Today we are joined again by Caroline from the Ken Foundation, and we're going to be talking about if failure is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Welcome, Caroline.
Welcome. Thank you for having me back.
Heather, hello.
Hello.
I don't know if I introduced you, do I? Maybe I'm failing straight away.
I know, that's our problem. We're assuming people know who Hev and Fuzz are.
We're always together. So, from our experiences, is failure a bad thing?
It's interesting. We instantly go to failure being a negative thing. It comes from when we were at school, because everybody was graded on a pass or a fail. Everything in life is all about pass is the yes, fail is the no. And as a result, we're not very resilient, and we're not very good at bouncing back from a no, and we're not very good at bouncing back from failure. And ultimately, there are no real failures. The only failure is if you fail to learn. The failure itself is not the problem. And actually, it's just a course correction. If you see it as an opportunity to say, well, that thing didn't work, but I wonder if I tweak this or I tweak that, will that bit work? And a lot of the really amazing inventions in life have come about as a result of failure, trying to invent one thing, accidentally inventing something else. There are lots of things in life. Penicillin is one of them. The sticky pads, 3M sticky pads, you know, the Post-it note was another. What were they trying to make? I think they were trying to create a glue that could would hold under different circumstances, but they weren't intending to create
tape.
A tape that would then come off and lay back without making a mark. They were trying to create something else. And so in terms of that, there was a failure with that, but actually it became a product that was then really 100%. Best-selling.
And I never actually thought of this. Like Fuzzy Logic, when we started 2 years ago now, which is crazy, the intention behind that was nowhere near marketing.
Yeah.
And now we're all of a sudden a marketing agency. And then we just followed where the path took us, rather than looking back and thinking it was failure. We were just adapting.
Yeah, little course corrections. One of the most, I'm a project manager by trade. That's one of the things I do. And one of the most important things to do is to have a plan. If you haven't written down your plan of where am I going and how am I going to get there, it's like getting in your car and just sitting there going, I wish to go to Edinburgh. Well, you're going to need to put the postcode into the sat-nav and follow the map. And if you get to as far as Birmingham and discover you should have gone up on the A1 instead, that's the time to do a course correction and cut across the country and get back on that road, as you know, overworking the analogy of how to get to Edinburgh. But if you don't have a plan, you're literally sat in your car with nowhere to go, just wishing yourself somewhere. But equally, if your plan is so rigid that when you hit a block in the road or traffic or whatever, if you can't course correct and go somewhere else, then you're still just sat in your car wishing you were getting there.
Definitely.
And it's the same with running a business.
Yeah.
And you could end up in the Lake District.
No, absolutely. And who wants to go to the Lake District? But ultimately, your first iteration of your business may well be nothing like where you are in 5 years' time. And you'll look back and think, God, I really didn't realise I was doing that. I didn't really know I was doing that. I absolutely, in my 30s, did a mad, crazy thing and gave up the very well-paying job I had with Merrill Lynch and Goldman Sachs and set up a pub. Because I had this passion and desire in my head that I wanted to run a pub and a restaurant. Had I ever done it before? No, I'd only ever done it as an employee for someone else. Was I good at it? Yes, because I understood marketing and I understood what a good pub needed to look like. Was it a success? Yes, I won national awards for my pub. Was it still a success 3 years later? No. Why not? Because I didn't understand my numbers. I didn't understand that all this effort and all this work and all these customers and this massive trajectory increase in turnover, why wasn't it translating into profit, money in the bank? Because I hadn't kept an eye on the numbers. I hadn't done enough of the boring stuff because I was too excited by the fun stuff of transforming a pub and getting people in the business. And what I needed was a business partner who probably could have done that for me, because part of a successful journey is knowing to outsource the things you're not very good at.
Yeah.
And I didn't. And instead, I had, sadly, an alcoholic for a partner. And that then led to not being in a pub being the best place for him for recovery. And so ultimately, that business didn't work.
Yeah.
But if you look at it on this surface level, it worked really well. It was amazing. Did fantastic things. But it was a failure.
So what lessons did you take from that?
Don't run a pub with an alcoholic is a good one. I'd stick with that.
Was this a life partner or business partner?
Life partner.
Okay, wow.
I didn't realise, I'd always thought that, it was turned into a counselling session, but I'd always thought that he was just someone who liked to drink, as opposed to someone who needed a drink.
Wow.
And being in the pub, it really established that he needed a drink, not just liked to drink. And it was not a good place for him to get help for the problem that he had.
Have you worked with a life partner since or before?
No, unfortunately, he died.
Oh my God.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry.
He died a couple of years after we came out of the pub.
Wow,
but one of those things.
Yeah.
But I had a wonderful experience in that 3 years, and it was a real seat of my pants. I didn't have a day off in 3 years. That's one. And my next lesson is have some balance in whatever you're doing.
I think
threw
that industry
myself.
is probably the most common to not have a break because you're having to open
You're
up
always
every
on.
day.
I think it's one of the things I now know when I'm hiring staff. I look for someone who's got hospitality experience. I think it's a real positive. If I can see on a CV somewhere that someone has worked in hospitality, not just for a couple of weeks in the summer holidays, but done a year or done 2 years in hospitality, I know they're going to have a certain set of skills which are problem solvers. They can think on the hoof. They can solve a problem there and then, because every night is show night.
Yeah.
When you have a
That's
client,
amazing.
if you have a client and you've got a relationship, you might do a piece of work for them. They might not like it. It might not work. You can go back and do it again. You might have a day where you're not feeling particularly good to do that bit of work. You think, oh, do you know what? I'll do that tomorrow. Whereas with hospitality, you open the doors, and it's the same with retail and shops, but you open the doors, and today is showtime. Your customers coming in, they want that experience, and if it isn't right, they won't come back.
So that's my first job for 5 years, that.
Yeah.
And now you're saying all that. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting actually because, so I came out of school, I did bar work before I went travelling, but then I was a hairdresser, trained up doing that, and I used to kind of like, and did retail. I kind of shied away from ever using that as my business as part of my story because I thought, people are going to think like I don't know what I'm talking about because that was my previous, before I did what I do now and before I had a job in marketing. But actually, again, it's the same kind of thing. Being a hairdresser, you're always on. It doesn't matter if you're having a crap day. As soon as you walk into that salon, you're there to make someone feel good.
Yeah.
Customer facing.
Yeah.
And you
really
can't say,
important.
I'm sorry, that blow dry didn't work right for you today. It looks a bit rubbish. I'll try it again tomorrow. Because I've come in, I've paid you a good amount of money. I want to walk out the salon looking fab. I don't want someone saying,
feeling fab.
Oh, sorry, I've had a really bad night. I just, I went out with my mates and I got drunk and I don't really feel like being at work today. Those things don't come into the equation.
No.
That's happened to me.
And I think, a big part of what can lead people maybe to go down, like have a failure or something like that, is not having that empathy for clients and customers and stuff. I think you have to have that because I've spoke to people that maybe this person was in construction and someone hadn't paid me and they went, well, you just messaged them and you say, if you don't pay me now, I'm not doing the work. I'm like, no, this is a long-term relationship. I need to understand, has this payment been missed? Is there something going on in the business that I need to work with them about and we can sort this out? It's not, if you haven't worked customer facing, you don't have the people skills to deal with these difficult conversations and stuff.
Brene Brown said that Brene Brown's a really interesting psychologist and she's a social scientist from America, but she's done some really insightful work. But one of the things she said is that life goes better if we imagine that people are doing their absolute best. So even when you meet someone at their absolute worst, this is the best version of themselves that's showing up that day. Even if it doesn't match with your values, that person is probably doing the best they can with what they have got at that time. And so, again, assuming that, it's so much nicer and kinder to be able to say, unfortunately, my invoice hasn't been paid. What's gone wrong here? Can you help me out? Be honest, be straightforward, put a boundary down, say the thing, but there's no need to be rude about it. There's no need to be difficult, but equally no need to shy away from it.
Yeah.
Don't sit there being offended because you haven't been paid. Be straightforward and say, I'm sorry, I think there's been a mistake somewhere.
Yeah.
Let's get into the nitty gritty now about actual failure.
Yeah.
So let's just say, what advice would you give to a business or sole trader who is experiencing their first thoughts on, I don't think this business is going to continue?
Yeah. So I would do a reality check. As the Kent Foundation, we have a mentoring system where we can match people under the age of 40 in Kent with a business mentor, and that mentor is a fabulous reality check. But if you haven't got someone like that, go and speak to somebody else. It might be your accountant, it might be a business advisor, it might be someone at the bank, and just have an offload, because there are days when everything looks bleak, and it isn't. It's just bleak for that moment. And that might be because 2 or 3 people haven't paid your invoices. And as a result, your bank account's looking a bit tight and your rent's going to bounce. And from that, it needs a bit of reflective space to actually say, okay, I'm going to need to get clients paying 50% upfront because I can't have this happen again. In the meantime, I'll stick the rent on my credit card, take a breath and see what happens. Alternatively, if this is now the 3rd month running that you've had to do that, that might be the time that you have to actually reality face that this isn't working. And you don't just give up on the journey because the road ahead is blocked. You look and see if there are alternative routes that you can take that still get you to your destination. So that's the point. I would sit down and think, is it my pricing? Have I got customers but they're not paying enough? Do a bit of root cause analysis of this has gone wrong, but why has it gone wrong? Is it because I'm not getting customers?
Hey Hev, have you heard of IT Manager Services? They're an IT support service based in Kent.
Yeah, I've been with them for over a year now. I love being able to just call them at any point and they take over my computer and fix the issue so much quicker than spending hours on Google.
Why have you kept that to yourself all this time? Right, I need to sign up to these guys. What's their website?
It's it-ms.co.uk, or you can call 01634 218 362.
So take it all the way back to the basics of, okay, what did my business plan say I was going to do? And it's always quite fun when you look back on a business plan a year later, because you laugh at yourself for the ludicrousy of it sometimes. You think to yourself, actually, I thought I was going to have 2,000 customers a day. What was I thinking? It's nearer 200. Can I redo my business plan now knowing that I'm more likely to have 200 customers, not 2,000?
Yeah.
And so really take a moment to sit back. Realise that sometimes the journey to where you want to go can take a bit longer than you thought it would. It's a bit like when you were doing your driving test when you were younger. You thought you'd had 20 lessons, you were ready. You wanted to do that driving test, and you might pass, you might not. Just keep going till you do. So I think take a moment to breathe, have a look at the whole of the picture and ask yourself, is this really what's happening here? Has this happened before? Will it happen again? Can I keep this going, but perhaps get a job? Is this possible to turn what I thought would be a full-time thing into a side hustle so that I can still carry on tweaking it, still playing with it? I've been employed now for 25 years since I had the pub, 20 years since I had the pub. I've always had a side hustle because I know I need it. Yeah. I need that creativity of something on the side. At the moment, I make and sell candles. The money that I make from making and sell candles pays for my holidays. So it's a nice little thing to have that allows me to have good holidays or not so good holidays. We go camping or we go all inclusive. It depends how it goes. And that's my little interest. And so there is an opportunity that if it's not working for you full time as your main income, think about, okay, can I get a job and keep this going on the side with the hope that one day maybe that will be my main source of income.
That's a great sort of thing that obviously as business owners we don't ever think about failure. We don't really think about going back to employment. Oh my God, just the thought of that gives me nightmares. Have you experienced that firsthand being part of the Kent Foundation where somebody has had to go back to employment? What sort of mindset, how do you deal with that?
I think the mindset is to not see it as failure. It is a course correction. My business isn't ready to employ me full time yet. In the same way as when you took your first member of staff on, it was that scary feeling of, oh my God, I've got too much going on. I need another one of me. I need to clone myself. And then you hire someone and then you have to learn to offset it all. That's the growth. That's the expansion and the fear that comes with that expansion. There's a similar fear that comes with contraction, but contraction might be the right thing. If you've only got 1 or 2 clients at the moment and you still need to pay for a roof over your head and you've got kids to feed and everything else. I look at it as a more pragmatic thing to do, to actually say, okay, I need 2 days a week work that will pay me for this. I spoke to a mentee only the beginning of this week. He works for a body shop doing car repairs and body shop work, but he can earn his day's money there in 2 hours of doing detailing as a mobile detailer, but he hasn't managed to build that business up enough yet. He's still got to do his days in the shop. And so we talked about how he can manage it and what his goals are. And his goal is now to have, he's currently doing 4 days in the shop and 3 days mobile, and he doesn't get a day off. And what he'd like to have is 3 and 3 and a day off. So that's his goal. And he knows that in the winter, he may have to pick up more shifts in the garage. And in the summer, he'll have more detailing.
Yeah.
And he can flex it. So I wouldn't see it as a failure. I've got to go back and get a job. I'd see it as I need to flex.
Of course, yeah. So what a hell of a mindset.
Yeah, it's interesting actually, because you're saying that. I think actually in that the construction-y world, and I'll kind of put the mechanical stuff in with that, it's actually people don't think of it as much with the negative mindset, because I know, like, say if you're a bricklayer, if you get rained off, you'll go, you could probably maybe go and do a painting job, or you go and pick up another thing if you know it's going to be bad weather. I think in construction it's one of those rare industries where there's no like kind of stigma in that. People go off and do different things depending on weather or depending on whatever. Whereas I think it's like maybe more officey jobs where people go, they've gone back to work, or they've gone to have to get a bar shift or something. It's interesting that you don't really see that as much in construction. People don't really blink an eyelid.
No, I think it's very different worlds, isn't it? Getting your hands dirty and sitting in an office chair.
Yeah.
It's a very different...
But ultimately, it also comes down to your personal mindset and your own personal values, and how you view failure. I don't view failure as the end. I just view failure as a learning. And I know that I probably will never go back into hospitality as a full-time business for me, but I'll still tinker on the edge of it. I might do the odd bit here and there. And that's mainly because it's not right for me as a person. My family will always come first. Yeah. But I had to learn that the hard way. And in that 3 years, my children at the time were 9 and 11. And they suffered as a result of me being in the pub and doing what we did, because we all lived in the pub. Yeah, and, they saw mum working from 7 a.m. till midnight every single day with very little time for them. And I wouldn't want to do that ever again. No. But ultimately, I could have done it in my 20s, and it probably would have been a different reason it failed. I probably wouldn't have had the commitment in the 20s.
Yeah. I guess it all just comes back to reframing the failure. So say the business, you've lost a few clients, so you've got to pick up some work at a bar or something like that. It's, I'm working at this bar, so I get to still do what I like doing. It's kind of like you get to do your business because you've picked up this extra work.
Why have you lost those clients, and adapt. If you got feedback, we always ask our clients for feedback. And even if the clients that we're not massive fans of, we still take their feedback very seriously. We still invest in tools that will hopefully resolve those things. But as long as they're learning from that, then sometime down the line they can then remove that part-time job and focus fully on. Also,
your job is not to be liked and wanted by everyone.
No.
Your offering may not appeal to every person. Not every penny fits the slot, and equally, just because one customer didn't have a good experience with you, didn't get what they wanted, doesn't mean what you're offering isn't right.
No, of course.
And you only have to look, I always say this to people, look on TripAdvisor and look at a successful business on TripAdvisor. There will be, 90% of amazing 5-star reviews, and then there'll be a little number at the bottom that are terrible reviews. These people had horrendous times. Is that really true? That a place that gets 90% amazing, wonderful, and 10% this is dreadful? No, it's those people went with an expectation of what they were going to be getting that was out of kilter with what that organisation offered. And you can look at hotels, and barring crises of the water went off or the kitchen was closed, but you can look at them, and sometimes in the same time frame there's someone who had the most amazing holiday and someone who had the most dreadful holiday. And that's a really good learning curve for just keep being you. Be confident that what you offer is what you want to offer, whether you're competing on price, whether you're competing on value or quality, whatever your offering is, be very certain about that offering. Know what it is you offer. One of the things I did when having the pub, I had a customer who was complaining about everything from the minute they walked in the door, and they had created an atmosphere in the place that was unreal. And so in the middle of their main course, I took it off them and threw them out the pub. And I gave them their starters and their wine on the house and said, I'm not going to make you pay for those. I'm not the pub you're looking for. It's the droids.
Yeah.
I'm not the pub you're looking for, and you're never going to be happy here. And I'd be happier if you left. Doors over there. Because I didn't want that game.
Yeah, of course.
And being my own boss meant I had the flexibility and the freedom to do that. If I was working for someone else as a manager, I'd have had to have gone through all the hoops I'm so sorry, it's not to your satisfaction. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, all that jazz.
Yeah.
We have a question.
Yes, we do. So we've got a question from previous guests, and as this was a bit of a heavier mindset-y episode, I'm going to keep it a little bit lighter now. So, what is your favourite podcast?
Favourite podcast.
Apart from the Rookie CEO, obviously.
I was just about to say, I'm living the dream in my favourite podcast. I'm a bit of a Traitors fan, I'm afraid, and I love Traitors Uncloaked.
I watched that last night, actually.
Yeah, so I like their dual format, that you've got one that you can watch, and then after that there's an extra bit that you can listen to.
Oh my God.
And I usually listen to that when I'm brushing my teeth and getting ready for bed. It all works beautifully.
Traitors takes over your life for a few weeks.
It does, but there's something about that show that brings out, everyone can get something from it, and it's not like the other reality shows, the Love Islands and the Big Brothers, and I hope it never gets like that. What I like about it is a real smorgasbord of people and different views, and you're always wrong. You think to yourself, oh, it's going to be that one. Oh, it wasn't that one. And I love it for that. And I also love, what I love seeing is everyone's reactions, and this is one of the reasons I love the podcast, is everyone's reactions when they find out who the traitors actually were.
Yeah.
And it's, with the celebrities one, when they found out it was Jonathan Ross and it was punctuated with a swear word, that just cracked me up. I thought it was brilliant. So I love that podcast. Something a bit lighthearted and silly.
And then what is another question? I know you've done this for us previously, but what is another question you can give our next guest, whether that's something silly, whether it's something insightful you want to know, if it's a mindset thing? So previous ones we've had are how do you stop nerves before an event? Another one was, obviously we gave you the biggest compliment, so what question do you want to leave?
I think my question is, it's kind of linked to my failure. What's the biggest mistake you've ever learnt from?
Oh,
I love that.
That's an amazing
question. It's
question.
Perfect.
Thank you so much again, Caroline, for coming on. And thank you, listeners, for listening.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll see you guys next week for another episode of The Rookie CEO.
Bye.